Hello to everyone. I'm not a pedagogist, I'm an architect, as the colleague told you before. So I'm going through to present you the topic of this lecture is tools and technologies for active learning. Well, the topic is really interesting, and I'm going to discuss it through the lens of new scenario, the shift in the teaching environment paradigm. We will explore the trialogical learning approach, examining its 6 principles, and discuss some teaching techniques that are a lot, as we will see later. Then we will analyze the obstacles in changing teaching methods in our context, in our university. And finally, I will briefly share what Sapienza is doing to involve professors in this transformation. Of course, the context in which we work is rapidly evolving across European countries, but not only. We can say around all the world, due to several factors: the financial crisis, demographic change, the intensification of global competition among universities, and the increasing significance of rankings. Not least during the pandemic time, we as professors were the protagonists as an unprecedented leap into applying new technologies, from which we learned valuable lessons that we'll discuss later. Students, our client, have changed over the time very fastly. The way they learn and their behavior in using IT have evolved significantly. And also in a European context, regulation also influenced teaching models. 8 years ago, the European University Association began discussing the principles for enhancing learning and teaching. In this framework, we find all the strategies and keywords for the new paradigm. For example, if we read together the first principle, the higher educational learning experience nurtures and enables the development of learners as active and responsible citizens, critical thinkers, problem solvers, equipped for lifelong learning. Lifelong learning, critical thinkers, problem solvers are the keywords of a new environment of teaching and learning. And the second one is very interesting because learning and teaching is learn-centered. So we have to change our mind and we have to share all together the new methodologies because, it's very important speak among us, among professors, what kind of method and tools we can use to improve and change our environment. And here you can see also in these slides how many documents a European University Association is producing on these topics. By the way, as we know, universities are among the oldest institutions in the world. And as we will see later, they must remain adaptable to survive. Due to the rapid advancement of knowledge in every field of science, we must shift our teaching approach, fostering students' creativity and enhancing their soft skills to better prepare them for the job market. So, information, knowledge, creativity, we have to pass through these keywords to jump in creativity. We have to change drastically our way to teach. Before, in the past, we transmit to our student information and we create knowledge. Now the soft skills are more important than the hard skills because of this fast advancement of knowledge in every field of science. Soft skills, what they are? Soft skills, communication, internationalization skills, public speaking, conflict management, decision making, management, stress management. So we have to be able to, during our courses, to to push our students to gain these soft skills. For this reason, pedagogists emphasize the importance of applying the trialogical learning approach, TLI. The idea is considered the teaching process as a building process centered around an object shared by learning communities. The TLA is based on 6 principles that now we go through one by one to explain each. So the first principle is identify an object the class wants to design and build. So knowledge through building process. Promote the hybridization of practices and artifacts in collaborative situation. Promote a long-term processes. Emphasize creativity through transformation and reflection. Support the organization of individual and collective representation. Provide flexible tools for development of artifact and practice. But what does it mean? So the first principle, the main question that we have to have in mind is, what do we build? We are building knowledge. So the characteristic of this object has to be concrete, tangible, interesting, and motivating, able to convey educational content, must have a meaningful purpose, allow students to externalize their knowledge creation efforts, multidisciplinary project and integration of practice from various disciplines, communities, and institutions. And finally, a transactional object that connects students with other contexts and position them as producers and creators. The second one, the main question is, for whom? Who is the object intended for? So we have to support interaction between personal and social levels of students in the classroom, understanding, first of all, the audience and its needs that are different, not self-referential, reflecting on the language and adapting it for an effective communication. This is another very important point, communication, the word that we use. Sometimes our students that doesn't understand them. So we have to be on track with them. So the third principle of TLI is promote long-term processes, fostering long-term processes of knowledge advancement. So how can the objects that we are going to build with our students can be improved and modified over the time? So the knowledge has to be creation of something that we have to modify because the knowledge is changing during the time. What existing object and practice have been enhanced, and how can they create objects and developed practice be shared with others? So another important part is the sharing, the community, to create a community of learners, interact with practice and methodologies typical of other communities. The fourth one, emphasize creativity through transformation and reflection, transforming from one format to another. Take a text and transform in a map, a video in a text, theoretical knowledge in practical knowledge, encouraging reflection and making tacit knowledge explicit, and sharing preliminary drafts for group discussion and feedback. Here we can see in this scheme, for example, we can start with the brainstorming dividing the class in group. So we can ask them through some platform that we see later, for example, Moodle, to write in a collaborative way the conceptual maps, and then, of course, later, after collaborative writing and a final presentation in front of the class. Then the fifth one is support the organization of individual and collective representations. So how to integrate individual and group work. Collaborative work, so defining task, deadline, exchanging draft, and giving feedback. And so for do this, we have a lot of techniques available, and we have different kind of tools. We start with some technique. One is a reciprocal teaching. Some pedagogists in 1984, Palin, and Brown, built this technique. What is it? It's a cooperative learning strategies that aims to improve students' reading comprehension skills. A group of students take turns acting as the teacher in guiding the comprehension of a text. So the fourth step of this technique is predict. What do you think this text is going to be about? Why do you think so? The next is clarify the importance of the vocabulary, the book word, because students read. The question, how we will get students to ask and relevant to deeply, if they deeply understand the text, and summarize or correlate to the proficiency level. And then another technique is jigsaw. In 1978, Aronson built it, and is another cooperative learning strategy that asks groups of students to become expert on different aspects of a topic, and then share what they learn with their classmates. So the round one is create some focus groups on one topic. And when I say topic, I say not only, for example, this technique we can use also for scientific matter, scientific topic, not only for, not hard science, but even for not soft science, but even for hard science and soft science. So round one, we create focus groups, we give them a task, and then in the round two, we divide the students in other groups so they can share what they understand, and they can share their knowledge and report to all the other, and allow to push the discussion. So the role taking, for example, can be in a classroom, we can give one specific role to each student. Moderator, so guide the group, the person that guide the group and support discussion. Synthesizer, the student that's write critical summaries of discussion. Theorist, that commends group ideas to scientific sources. Researcher, find additional materials. Mapper, observer, skeptic, and so on. We have to change the role. We have to put students in the middle of the process. And of course, another technique that I'm sure that you know, is the flipped classroom. So in the traditional process of teaching, you have professor and then students they listen professor. In the flipped classroom, that it's very it's not so simple to create and animate the group, the rule are changed. So are the classroom, so the students that activate, they study and report to all the other. And so the flipped classroom I used during my lecture is quite interesting, because sometimes we discover how our students can be very active in learning. And also they gain in this technique, the students gain speaking skills in front of public, that is very useful after when they will go to the real world, in the job world. The sixth principle of TLA is provided flexible tools. So the main question is which technologies will be used and for what purpose? For co-construction artifacts, for a community building. Of course, we have email, video conference, Google Drive, Dropbox, and CMAP tools, Canva, online forum as Moodle, Perusal, Padlet. So it will be interesting ask you what kind of tools you use to involve to create this new innovative environment for our students. For example, in Sapienza, they push us to use Moodle. Moodle is a modular object-oriented dynamic learning environment, and is not a platform only for upload material and share with students. Of course not. Is something that allow us to create communities of student and teacher aimed at sharing information, stimulating debate, and disseminating good study and research practice. Nowadays, Moodle start to be integrated with in AI, intelligence artificiale, artificial intelligence, and is in continuous developing. And why they push us to do Moodle? Because Moodle is the widely used platform by educational institutions worldwide, and is for free. And we can use it in several languages. In this slide, I leave you some references on this topic of trilogical learning approach. And now, I want to share with you some reflection. Of course, we know, we are aware that we have to change. And we started, maybe in some context, we start to change, as in Sapienza. But there are some obstacles. Obstacles in general are the powerful influence of the traditional education, for the most part of professor, the perception and definition that teachers have of their roles, sometimes the discomfort and anxiety that the change causes, and also there is a big debate because there are poor incentives for changing. We are not pushed strongly to change in general way. But what are the main obstacles for professor? Worry of not being able to cover all the course material, the possible increasing lesson preparation time, and it is true, it's true. If we want to create something very innovative and in interaction space in classroom, yes, there is this not possible. It's true. It takes a lot of time. Also, we have to face with the difficulty of using active learning in large classes, but I can answer to this obstacle that we can use a blended approach. So we can use online in classroom. So we can use some tools in classroom. And the lack of educational material, equipment, resources. In one of the last article, a scientific paper, also they had in as obstacles for professor insufficient training, time, and incentives. Are among the most commonly quoted barriers for faculty change. And what are the obstacles for the students? Old habits, but they came, for example, in Italy system, they came from higher school that are sometimes more innovative of in teaching than university. The school, the university, is still a teacher-centered institution, and we have to break and change, and we have to turn in student-centered institution. Students sometimes do not like to take risks, to expose themselves, make mistake, speak in front of the classes, and sometimes often resist a greater effort. And of course, they are defined as though defined them as minimalist learners. But at this point, we can discuss it, because when you interact with them and change the environment of learning, they are not minimalist learners. They change very fastly. So teaching is something that is related, strictly related to research. And both of them are spaces of improvement. University teaching is no longer a given for granted. We have a process of students change, and we have to take into account teaching practice change, the relevance of planning of teaching. So when we use these techniques, and we have to plan everything before, the time, the person in the group, what kind of tools we have to them use, allow to the students use. The new relevance of the assessment is another important point, and how to bring new teaching practice into university teaching environment. So teaching nowadays is not just an individual dimension of the individual teacher. And for that reason, this webinar and other activities that are promoted by universities are very important. And so, going to conclude, I share with you this experience inside Sapienza University. In 2016, Sapienza started to created a group, QUID, that means quality and innovation in teaching, strictly connected with the other commission at the level of Atheneum as a quality team, and the quality team on teaching. And we started to deliver courses on different topics, and I'll show you later in the next slides, to not only to new professors, so new researcher and so on, but also to professor engaged in university since several years. So the courses are open to all. And then in 2 years ago, we create the Teaching and Learning Center in Sapienza. That is a multidisciplinary research and service center. The participants are 49 departments, And they in this teacher learning center there are two core. One is quality, the quid, quality innovation in teaching, and the other core is the other group is related. The initial and in service training for the professor in the high school. So in one group they we deliver course for professor academic in the academic environment, and one group is linked, strictly linked with the professor in the high school to create the right environment, learning environment for our students. This is an example of what Sapienza, the module, the teaching module that Sapienza share and provide for all professors. So teaching practice for active learning, and the other one is how to choose and design an exam test. Even the final exam, we have to rethink it, because we have to give to be very honest and clear with the students. We have to choose some criteria and give them a score. Another is how to use the web platform, in particular Moodle, and then how to effectively manage a degree course. This nowadays is the Sapienza University courses that they are offered for all incoming new professor and all to all the other. I'm going to finish. Thank you for your attention.